Okay, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us. So today is the What's Next teleconference for LGBTBEs, focusing on business-to-business and tiered contracting. We have a great panel for you here today. I think most of you know me, but I'm Phil Giorgiani. I'm the Director of Supplier Diversity here at the NGLCC. And I'm joined by our LGBTBEs, Dawn Ackerman and George Piper of Outsmart, and Kit Neese of First Choice Financial. And I'm going to give them some time to introduce themselves in a moment. Just a few quick housekeeping things. As I mentioned in the email, the call is being recorded, so you will be able to access it afterwards on our website once we do our magic editing to it. And anyone who has a question for me or for the panelists, you can just send them directly to me. You should all have your email because it's what the notification went out on, but it's pgiorgiani@nglcc.org. And then I'll kind of, read them as we have time at the end. We have prepared questions, but we definitely want to be able to get to all of your questions as well. So just a little bit of an intro, as certified LGBTBEs, you all know that kind of a central benefit of the Supplier Diversity Initiative is the access to our 140 corporate partners who have a commitment to investing in the LGBT community, and pursuing those opportunities is important to you, and supporting you guys as you pursue those opportunities is important. But sometimes, often large corporate contracts are something that can take a long time to pursue, and we want to make sure that our LGBT business owners are kind of pursuing the full breadth of the opportunities available to them. And a huge opportunity is working with each other in business-to-business relationships. And those business-to-business relationships could be in the form of direct, actually contracting, selling goods and services to each other. And then there's also tiered contracting, which essentially is acting as a tier 2 supplier to an LGBTBE who already is servicing a prime contract but needs support in servicing that contract. So we're here to kind of explore a little bit about the different ways that can look, and to give you some examples of our business owners who have had success in the past. So I want to introduce, I think we'll start with Dawn and George. Dawn is the CFO, and George is the CEO of Outsmart Office Solutions. They're a green office furniture and office solutions company. They've been with us for a long time, and they've actually grew out of a partnership between two LGBTBEs, and they're doing some really exciting stuff. So I guess let me let you guys, whoever, Dawn or George, wants to talk a little bit about your history and your engagement with the NGLCC.
Sure. Well, I had a small company that sold office equipment and toner cartridges. I started it back in the late 90s. And George had a company that sold office furniture and did installation and office space planning and design. Also started in late 90s, early 2000s. And both of us, I guess, from our separate cities, I was in Los Angeles and he was in Seattle, learned about the NGLCC and certification very early in the process. And both attended the NGLCC conference in 2005 in San Francisco, where there was a very small group of certified suppliers as well as corporations who were starting to include the LGBTBE certification in their supplier diversity spend. And George and I, while we didn't know each other, I know that when I was talking to corporate representatives about my company, they would say things like, well, have you met the guy that does office furniture? And turns out they were saying the same thing to him. Have you met the girl that does office equipment and toner? And so as we learned more about the certification and understood the opportunities that could very well come from being certified with time, it became clear to us that as individual small businesses, our chances of getting a contract might actually be much better if we considered combining our services and building a business that way. And so that's what we did. In 2007, we formed Outsmart on paper. It wasn't until a few years later that we were really able to start pushing this company together. And now in 2013, we've definitely made great strides and have a lot of great opportunities, including our opportunities with Office Depot, which I think we'll be asking us about here later. But, everything about our business has been from meeting at the NGLCC conference and being certified LGBTBE and building a business accordingly.
Yeah, fantastic, and that's one of our we love that story here at the NGLCC. Now, you're not always going to find someone who you want to completely merge your business with. That doesn't happen every day, although, there's still kind of up to and including that. There's definitely, more broadly speaking, opportunities for strategic alliance, and we'll get into that and other ways of collaboration. So thank you, Dawn. I also want to introduce Kit Neese. Kit is the CEO and Senior Project Manager of First Choice Financial, and they specialize in designing and building and maintenance of government and military facility systems, telecommunications, security, and special projects. And Kit also has a very strong background in video and photography and editing. And Kit's been very involved in the Central Pennsylvania Chamber, which is a really exciting area for us. There's a lot of really strong big companies in Central Pennsylvania. So, Kit, if you just, want to talk a little bit about, your company and your background in, government and elsewhere contracting.
Sure. Thanks very much, Phil, and especially to Sam and all the other support staff at the NGLCC. It's been, I've been certified since late in the summer last year, and so I'm a newbie to the process of LGBTBE, but not to national and international certification. I'm a United Nations vendor for Tier 1 for this last year. It means that I can work up to $1 million in contracting. There's 3 tiers with United Nations. I've done government contracting since 1984. I worked for some very small minority-owned businesses and some very large corporations that, as their project specialist in government contracting. Worked overseas, total of 11 years with the State Department, and my specialty was blast and ballistic design. I got my nickname Kit. My first name is really Katharina. While working at the White House for the Ridge team right after September 11th. I designed all the windows and doors after September 11th for the Pentagon and the White House and the EEOB. The Executive Office Building. So that lets you know that I go from everything from on-paper contract management all the way through large construction and design. I own this very eclectic woman-owned business. It's actually an economically disadvantaged woman-owned business under federal contracting. Federal contracting, for those that don't know, have different set-asides. Unfortunately, they don't have LGBT set-asides yet, but we're working on that. There's women-owned business, veteran, 8A, of which I'm an 8A and an 8M. 8M means it's a woman-owned business. 8A is a set-aside for a diversity business, particularly minority. It has to do with how much money you make a year. My company, First Choice Financial Group, started out as a mortgage business and a contracting company that took on federal projects for people like the federal court system. If they wanted a business investigated or they wanted someone to help them better prepare to do contracts on a large scale with GSA, they called me and I would walk that company through from registering all the way to the end. From then on, I decided to go back into construction and facilities management, so I divided my company into 3 divisions. One is Provisio, do a lot of work with the United Nations, and we do project management. Basically, I say that we manage widgets. If you need something managed, we can do it. anywhere in the world. Shelter Plus, I manufacture mobile teaching and medical facilities that are used by the United Nations. And First Choice Facilities, we have facilities maintenance contracts, which sometimes it's janitorial and sometimes it's a specialty project. Currently, we have 2 specialty projects for the Veterans Administration. And you're going to say, well, how can a small business divide itself into 3 divisions? What I know about contracting and keep itself small in a small group of people, and I have 15 subcontractors. I'm a prime contractor, and I hire other LGBTBEs and individual. Right now, all my subcontractors are gay and lesbian or transgendered, and that, for me, is a really great experience. Up until this last year, it wasn't, until I joined my local chamber here in Harrisburg and became certified. I pretty much was across the board, people that I had worked with for years, and then I made a conscious effort that when I got projects, I was going to reach out to people in the chamber, people that I had heard of in the community, and help them along in the process. Most of the people, I think when I came to this chamber, I was the only person that specialized in contracting, any kind of bid contracting. So there is a great learning curve to that, and I'm glad to say that we have a supplier diversity committee now, and we're starting to work on
and you're referring to the Central Pennsylvania Chamber.
Yes.
Correct, yeah.
The Central Pennsylvania Chamber. And from that has come some really good conversations with other vendors and with other larger companies that are now starting to see some of the people that I've helped along and saying, well, we're a prime contractor, Kit's worked with you, we'd really like to work with you also. There is no mystery to contracting. It's like running a marathon. It's extremely difficult to prepare and do all the really hard work up front, but once you get there, you just repeat it time after time and again. If you are already an LGBTBE, you have everything you need to become a federal or state contractor. You have everything in place. You've had to submit your taxes. You have EIN numbers. You have your corporate setup or your LLC or sole proprietor, and you're ready to go. You just have to sort of make that decision.
Thanks, Kit. That's amazing, and I actually didn't know until you said that all of your subcontractors were actually LGBTBE. So that's quite amazing. And, that's something that will definitely get you on a teleconference, I can tell you that.
I'm proud of our community. I really am, and I am proud of how diverse businesses have come to the forefront and said, listen, we want to learn other things too. We don't want to just do one thing. Why I have 3 parts to my company is because a small business has to be able to cover payroll and cover all their expenses year-round. And so for the government and state, it's all cyclical. Sometimes government has bids out, sometimes United Nations, sometimes local. And what I tried to do was cover it for at least 3 seasons of the year. So.
Yeah, that's really terrific, and that's definitely a model we're seeking to kind of disseminate and expand. So we're going to go and just let everyone listening know if you have questions already, if there's anything that, whether it's a specific question or just a topic area that you'd like us to address, you can start absolutely sending those questions to me now. It's PeteGeorgiani@NGLCC.org. Before we went into the questions, I just wanted to make sure everyone knew a little bit about, the resources that are available to them as LGBTBEs immediately that are interested in business-to-business contracting or in, engaging along other points of the supply chain. So, as you all know, you as certified LGBTBEs, you have access to the information of the other LGBTBEs. We're just nearly at 500 now. So you are able to reach out directly. If you can always reach out to the staff here. If you're seeking, if you're engaged as a prime supplier and you're seeking, companies to partner with or subcontract under you, we can provide that advice. Or if you think you'd be a good fit for a specific a specific kind of prime contractor or are looking for guidance in the ways to kind of do that outreach, we're available. For that, we do have at our conference that's coming up in Dallas, July 31st to August 2nd, we have the Industries Clusters at Conference, which is specifically aimed at getting people in specific commodities together to facilitate that connectivity. So, it may be kind of along Dawn and George's line. You may be looking for someone who's doing something similar but not the exact same thing and whether, for a partnership, either in a partnership on a contract that exists or, one that you anticipate in the future. So we currently, just to run through really quickly, the industry clusters we're planning to have are advertising, marketing, communications, that's one, professional services, including human resources, accounting, consulting, and legal is the second one. A real estate cluster, consumer goods, promotional, and retail is the next one. Events and entertainment, and architecture and design. So those are what we're planning to have right now. That's in the conference and in Dallas. And, of course, the entire conference is also an opportunity to interface directly with the other LGBTBEs, whether they're in a similar commodity area or completely different. So I guess that's a good segue to our questions. So specifically, I was going to towards Outsmart, since you guys have been with us for a long time. If you're going to the conference, kind of what is a good way, if you're in the mindset of pursuing other businesses for a possible partnership or possible, tiered contracting opportunity, a good strategy for finding them out and maybe evaluating whether they're a good fit or not.
George, do you want me to take this?
Yeah, I just want to start that.
Sure. I would say that really it's about thinking about what your company does and has to offer, and maybe what you might be lacking or could use more strength in a certain part of it, or if you've had the opportunity maybe to look at some contracting opportunities where if you just had this extra support or this extra, for us it could be just a different product that we need to be able to offer. That's where partnerships can really come into play. And the fact that we're all LGBTBEs, for me, I think is right away a good plus in the right direction. It's like, hey, there's not a whole lot of us. It's not like there are millions of us out there that are certified. So for us to be able to work together is only going to make the certification stronger and the entire NGLCC supplier movement better for everybody. So getting to know other certified suppliers, and we've spent many years at the conference meeting other people who do similar things to what we do, seeing if there's any way in which we can, work together to be able to sell some of the products that they do or whatever. And right now we've found that we've been able to partner with a couple of other LGBTBEs, and we also use other LGBTBEs, their goods and services. And a lot of other LGBTBEs buy from us for our goods and services. So, there's a lot of partnership opportunities. You don't necessarily have to go form a new business with someone like George and I did, and that's a whole different story. But there are a lot of ways that we can work together, and you just have to take the time to spend time at the conference getting to know the other business owners. And, don't just limit yourself to your city, because it's, with technology and the way things are today, we do business with other LGBTBEs all across the country. And we have clients that come from the Atlanta Gay Chamber and in Cabo, in Connecticut, and New York, and Seattle, and San Francisco, and Los Angeles. So really, I love the conference for that reason. It gives me an opportunity to meet people from all over the country, and it also gives you reasons to travel all over the country to go visit clients and possible partners. So
that's been. Oh, sorry, George.
Oh no, I was going to add to that. I think when we met Office Depot for the first time, I think Dawn and I were both terrified. Oh God, here's the big competition, and It's not the case. I think you lead with curiosity, and especially in the case of the other LGBTBEs that we meet, there are so many opportunities to partner and not look at their business as competition. Find those places where you complement one another. It's like we may have a client in a certain area in the country where we're just not on the ground, but that business is. And, there's a perfect opportunity for our client then to be serviced by another LGBTBE that's in that area. So there's lots of opportunities to partner. And I think if you are at the conference and you have that open mind to, with curiosity to seek those other folks, there's a lot of win-win situations out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can just say from the staff perspective, and it's when thinking about like the matchmaker meetings, and when you are going into those opportunities where you're facing the corporate partners really are looking for solutions. So if you can come to them and say, I have, depending on what the specific issue is that they're looking for a solution for, to be able to say, I have this strategic partnership that can bring you a broader solution, and it's a diverse spend, and it's in one package. And you might want to think about if you're, in terms of what your customers are asking for, if you're kind of being pushed in a new direction or to provide a new service, to think about, well, does it make sense for us to develop this capacity to provide this new service, or is this something that we can find another LGBTBE who specializes in this, and this person is our, or this other enterprise is our strategic partner, and then it's kind of a ready-made, out-of-the-box solution for a corporate partner. So just actually pivoting off of that, and speaking of the corporate partners, I definitely wanted you guys, John and George, to talk a little bit about your partnership with Office Depot, which is really exciting.
Sure. We, like I said, we at the conference in 2009 in Seattle, Don and I had a booth at the conference, and directly across from us was Office Depot's booth. And I think, at first we were a little intimidated by the fact that they were there, and we thought, oh gosh, now the big guys are here, and what's that going to mean for our certification? And we realized that if people are truly looking at the value of community and the value of how they're spending their dollars, I have to give it up for Kit and, a lot of the things that she said about all the relationships that she has with her partners that are also LGBTBEs, and looking at spending your money with LGBTBT. I'm going to totally mess that up. LGBTBE. It's a mouthful. I think it's, in the chamber movement, a lot of folks talk about the pink dollar and that spend, and I think we have to strategically do that as a call to action, because it really talks broader about our community and how we support one another. But I think, our specific relationship with Office Depot came about in the fact that they had this incredible Tier 1 diversity program. Mm-hmm. And what they were looking for from us was actually including the first LGBT business within their program to really show that they, as a corporate entity, were really taking that larger step to include an LGBTBE and not, step on, the opportunity for us to gain business, but really looking at us as a partnership in gaining that business. And the truth is, for us, Don and I were in our specific markets, and by partnering with Office Depot, it allowed us to leverage their distribution and their price point, which we couldn't compete on previously. And so now we have the benefit of offering an LGBTBE at a specific price point that's out there that people expect with national distribution. What a win for us, and what a win for Office Depot to now include an LGBTBE, which, through our relationship, they actually did some work and went from, I think at the low was 45 on the HRC Corporate Equality Index to getting 100%. And that was through leveraging their partnership with us. So there's just a lot of opportunity, and we know that we would have never had that opportunity to be in front of Office Depot had we not been a certified LGBTBE.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and that's a little bit outside the box in terms of business to business, since that is a corporate-facing relationship, but, it's a strategic partnership. It's not as strictly you're a vendor to them. So there are opportunities for engagement with them. Office Depot really stands out in terms of that kind of robustness, but there are other ways, to be thinking about how you can provide a solution for a company like that, and how obviously they're providing a really great solution for you as well. So to pivot a little, and going back to KIT, and I know we had talked about this the other day, so, for a lot of larger companies that are pursuing, whether it's specifically federal, but even, corporate contracting too, they have dedicated project management or business development staff, whereas for some smaller LGBTBEs, it's either just them or they don't have a dedicated staff person for that. So can you maybe talk about what a smaller company, how they can think, how they can strategize, how they can use their resources when they're looking to pursue contracts with prime suppliers?
Sure. Well, you have to sort of understand why a prime supplier would want to work with you. For me, I do researching and planning all the time. Every morning I get up, and for an hour I look at what bids are out there and who's bidding. I look at people that register on the federal bid opportunities, and sometimes I can tell. Let's just take, for example, video. There is probably maybe 100 of us that do the kind of commercial video for the government that I do. And so I look out there, and when I see a new name, I Google them, and I, go to, and normally I'll send them an email off, and I'll say, hey, just wanted to check in. I see you're doing also this bid. Wanted to talk a little bit about what we do and what you do. Quite frankly, I'm probably not competition for you, but if I bid this as the prime, what services can you offer me? So from a prime standpoint, I'm always looking for value engineering. I'm always looking for someone to bring something different to the table. But from years of doing this, I know that the most important thing for me is not so much how much you know or how much experience. I'll bring you on if our vision and our work ethics are similar. I'm a workaholic. I mean, OCD workaholic, and I know that. And not everybody is, and I'm willing to do that extra and bring someone out on a subcontractor if they're easy to work with and can sort of switch it up a little bit. If they can be a little bit more flexible. Last year I got a large bid to do a Department of Interior video all across the United States, do a bunch of filming, put it all together for the Office of Inspector General. And my normal subcontractor I went to was like, oh, well, I can't meet those price points and I can't do this. So I went to somebody new and I said, listen, this is, you're going to have to fly here, you're going to have to fly there, turn it around really quickly. Are you willing to do that? And they said, absolutely, and it turned out perfect. So I just think flexibility, letting your prime contractors know about you. Don't be afraid of emails and press releases. I mean, I read every press release I get from a potential subcontractor. I read capability statements. A strong capability statement says to me, in 50 words or less, you can describe everything you've got to offer me. And so for me, and I do the same with my general contractors. They know who I am because, number one, I'm persistent. Two, I send them my capability statements, and I'm there for every job that they send me. I will either tell them, this looks like my purview or this doesn't, and I'll be really honest. I just won't let that email go, and will you bid this for me overnight? I'll say, listen, you gave me too little time, so I'm going to say no this time, but keep sending me, and I will confirm every time I get that correspondence.
Right. That is really good insight, and obviously it's, of course, best practice if you don't have a capabilities like a one-pager or something, then that's something you should really be thinking about putting together. And those are useful. They're useful at a conference, and they're also useful, as Kit said, to actually send to people that you're considering or that you're pursuing work with. So actually one thing that you did mention in terms of working with your subcontractors, I'm going to pivot to a question that we had from our studio audience. So we have someone who works with another diverse business at the moment. The relationship has turned into fulfillment of the business that he sends, that the questioner sends, and they're getting a bit expensive, or they're more expensive than he anticipated. How best do I have that conversation that I feel that the relationship should be two-way and not just one way? We should be referring business back and forth, and also kind of adding my own spin. I think this also really goes to how do you establish in the beginning, because obviously, you have your capability sheet and you have like what you can do, and this is, for all the panelists. How do you know to make sure, to kind of strategies for making sure you mesh well and making sure that you both have the same idea of what's coming out of that relationship, if that makes sense as a question?
Sure. I think when, let's say, just business to business, I always ask the person that I'm about to do business with for their business plan, and sometimes I'll ask them for their financials, not in detailed financials, but what do they really charge? When they have a commercial customer, are they charging $45 a square foot or $120, for half an hour? Or I sort of want to know before I get into a partnership with somebody, one, that they're stable. Two, that they're going to be able to pull half their weight, or at least a majority of their part. I'm willing to do 200% if they're willing to do 100% back. But if the quality of documentation is not there from the very beginning, then that always puts up a red flag for me. And I'm a quality control person, and I have a reputation of does not play well with others, because I'll be excruciatingly blunt in the beginning and say, hey, listen, something about this doesn't look right, or this is what the going rate is. I like people that work with me to do a little bit of research on their own. Okay, I'm doing this kind of a service, and this is what the federal government's paying for that kind of service. It's easy enough to find on the GSA schedule or any place else, or from contract awards. So if you come in at like a big red herring, then I know automatically that you're not realistic about a partnership. So, and how to address it once you've gotten in bed, and after that, just, whether it's, if you're doing it on your own and you don't have a bookkeeper, sometimes it's best to have a bookkeeper sit down with you and say, listen, these just don't match up, or the expectations that we had in the beginning need to be revisited, and we need to put a new or an addendum to our business plan and say, listen, things have changed. We've gotten education along the way, and now the easiest way to say the economic climate is different. Let's reevaluate what we're doing. And I think everyone knows when they hear that, says, something's not right here.
Right.
So we're going to reevaluate it, and it just says it's not making dollars and cents. And quite frankly, there's a lot of people that I'd love to work with, but I don't work with them because they're not really conscious of the dollars and cents. Mm-hmm. So in the end, we all have to make a living.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's excellent advice, and unfortunately sometimes there might be a difficult conversation that does have to happen, and it will be difficult. So another question. How can a professional specialize in eco, smart, energy efficient, this is the specific business owner, obviously, they do energy efficient interior architectural design and also furniture design and production. And specifically the question was around how they can develop relationships with the GSA, but I also wanted to make sure I got input from George to talk about, in addition to the GSA, which is the General Services Administration with the federal government, since you guys do this, if you wanted to talk a little bit about developing relationships, with state and local federal agencies, and whether it's specific to, architecture, design, that kind of commodity family, or just in general, specifically around how to start the relationship.
Sure. I think, depending on your area, if you're, I know here locally in the Seattle area, we just had our regional contracting forum, which is a reverse trade show that all the local entities have come together to put on. So it's City of Seattle, Port of Seattle, Port of Tacoma, State of Washington, Washington Department of Transportation, and so on. And there's very similar opportunities, state by state. They might set it up differently, but there's usually the general buckets that businesses fall in, that government usually puts them in, which is either your construction, your architects and engineering, or your goods and services. And the way to engage is actually to go to these events where you get to meet them. And they're very similar to the matchmaker meetings that is put on by NGLCC at the conferences. And you go and you talk about your capabilities, and you really introduce your company and find out what opportunities are coming down the pike. Most government agencies will list on their websites, or you can certainly call their supplier diversity or contracting departments and find out, when was the last time what I specifically sell came up as a service or commodity for bid. And generally those contracts will last, 3, 5, 7 years. So once you're in as a prime, it's a great opportunity. But that's kind of where I would say start with those agencies, because once you're in, Kit said this earlier, that once you do that first big contract, it is painful. As Dawn can certainly attest to, she did the bulk of writing for our first large bid, and but once you do that, you can replicate it over and over again, and it's even if you don't win, it's a very valuable process to go through the first time. So I don't know if I'm quite answered the.
Well, I mean, I think it's a big question, so I'm not sure it's kind of, not that it's unanswerable, but it has such depth. I do think that's really important information.
There's a lot of avenues, into government contracting, but you have to, it's just like any, B2B relationship. You have to let them know that you exist. Just by registering and, signing up on a roster doesn't necessarily, garner you business. You might know when the next bid is coming up. But you really have to do some, face-to-face time and get those people who are making the decisions know who you are and know what your business provides.
Yeah, and there are, I think it's a matter of being on the lookout, as you said, that the GSA, the federal agencies, also local agencies, they do have occasional matchmaker conferences or fairs, or conferences which contain within them matchmaker meetings. There's also the local SBA. Again, obviously I'm talking about federal now. You can walk into meet with your local SBA representative, and they can give you really specific guidance about where, about your area and what's being spent in your area. So Kit, and I guess going to you in this, I'm trying to, parse this in a way that isn't just completely too huge to answer. But in terms of working with the GSA, and obviously there's the process of getting on the GSA schedule, and we specifically did a teleconference on the GSA schedule, which I believe is available on our website, and they also have those resources. So you don't need to explain that whole process. But in terms of if you're wanting to engage with the GSA, and I guess with an eye towards are there ways, and I don't know if you said this before, it might be incorrect, can you find out the people, is it publicly available who is already a prime supplier to, whether it's, the GSA or just on the GSA schedule, or working with other industries in your commodity, and then just reaching out to them with your capabilities statement? Is that kind of the first step?
Sure. One of the first steps, and I think it's very telling, is you go to the GSA schedule and you put in your NIAX code, or you go through and find that you can put in a search name. Okay, I do office chairs. And then everyone that has a contract to do office chairs has their capability and their contract out there, and they have to give their rates. So a lot of times when small contractors don't know what to charge, go to the GSA schedule, pick someone in your geographic location, go down through and say, oh, well, for this they're charging blank, for this, and print a couple of those out. I mean, they make it painfully honest what they do. Mm-hmm. My company is not on the GSA schedule because I like the flexibility of giving some of my regular clients discounts. And unfortunately, when you're on the GSA schedule, everybody is equal. Mm-hmm. If you give those discounts there, you're going to have to give the discounts to your federal people too. Mm-hmm. So just for me as a small company, it doesn't work, but I have lots of friends that it really works for. The same way comes to the state. For example, the Pennsylvania Department of State on their Department of Treasury has the list of every contract and a copy of the contract that they awarded for the last 5 years. So you can go on there and you say, well, I'm bidding the facilities maintenance job at the state park. What did they pay the last time? And that gives you an idea. You match their scope with the scope of the new contract and say, well, if they were paying this and I add the cost of living to it that the federal government, like the 1.23 to it, then I should know where my bid should be. And if you look at it and say, no way could I do it at that, that was one bid I would just pass over and go to the next. Every year at the end of the fiscal year, the federal government puts out an Excel spreadsheet, and they put every contract. You just go onto fbo.gov, and you can download every contract that they've awarded in every commodity. Other than things that they call just JNAs, justification and authorization. They don't have to give that amount. Those are for those special people, like really big defense contractors, and there is some mystery to that. But whatever it is, they felt that no one else could give them those same services for the same price. So
right.
It's really pretty much a open book, and for somebody starting out new, it's an easy to find out what your product and what your time is worth.
Yeah, and I think it's a good way to kind of determine if this is the area, federal or government contracting in general. Working as a subcontractor is going to give you an idea because you're going to be meeting the same compliance and reporting requirements, just because those will be kind of getting the prime contractor has to meet the compliance for working with the federal government. Therefore, you will. So we'll kind of give you an idea if that's something that is right for you, if it's something that your enterprise responds well to, and it's something we certainly, NGLCC as an organization is certainly very supportive and working hard towards expanding federal government contracting opportunities for LGBTBEs, but that's not the same as saying that every LGBTBE should be a government contractor and that it's right for everyone, because that's definitely a distinction.
The other interesting thing, Phil, is, for example, last year I bid 139 federal contracts, So I have 139 places out there on Google that had my name added to those contracts, so it's free advertising. Sometimes if there's a prime contractor I want to work with, I'll bid everything. I'll put at least a request for information or that I'm interested in this job so that they keep seeing my name time after time. And a couple of large contractors from D.C. recently called me and they said, listen, we see you all the time out there on Google. What are you doing and what can you do to work with us? So sometimes it's just a different kind of advertising.
Yes, there's many ways to skin the cat, and it's about kind of what works best for where your commodity and where you're approaching it from. Well, fantastic. I just wanted to thank you guys again. I think that was a really some amazing insight that you shared. Just to everyone on the call, as I mentioned before, this is recorded and we are going to be sharing it on the website. So if you want to re-listen to it, or if you want to, we'll be sending the links out to all the LGBTBEs, but if you want to share it, you'll be able to. And with that, we can conclude. Thank you guys, Kit and Dawn and George. Thank you all so much. This is really very valuable.
Thank you so much, Phil.
All right, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining.